Fear is sneaky. It's not always loud. It's not always panic and terror. Sometimes it whispers. It plants quiet little seeds of doubt. Like, what if it doesn't work out? Or what if I'm not good enough? What if I'm not brave enough? What if they leave? And if these seeds take root, they grow into things like insecurity and overthinking and procrastination. It causes you to hesitate when you should move forward and leads to indecision that keeps you stuck year after year after year. Today, I'm exposing the sneaky ways fear creeps into your life and, more importantly, what you can do to overcome it. Hey everybody, it's Rossi. In my last video, I defined fear and I talked about the beliefs that I've adopted that help me overcome my struggles with fear. So if you haven't seen that video, I want you to go watch that one first and come back. And you can find it at the link in the description below. Now, fear is a tool of the enemy. The Bible describes our enemy as cunning and as sneaky. So of course, he uses that same tactic when it comes to fear. He wants us to believe that the subtle ways that fear is creeping into our lives, he wants us to believe that it's normal. Fear is not just an emotion. It's a thief. It robs our peace. It steals our joy. It takes away our clarity and leaves us feeling uncertain. Fear creates illusions. It doesn't have to be true. It only has to be believed. I'm gonna say that again. Fear doesn't have to be true. It only has to be believed. Fear can make up anything it wants. And the trick is to make you believe it. So today I'm exposing how fear manifests itself in our lives. And I'm going to show you how you can walk in expectation and confidence instead. Many times we don't realize fear is at work in our lives because it shows up as other things. It seems normal. It shows up as overthinking. Right? We're going over every possibility in every scenario until we are stuck at a point of indecision. It shows up as procrastination. I'll get to it when I feel like it, but I never ever feel like it because I'm uncertain. I don't know what to do. It shows up like doubt. When you have already convinced yourself that it's not going to work out in your favor before you even try. And it shows up as people pleasing, where you say yes to things that you don't want to say yes to because you're afraid that that person might not like you anymore, that that person might leave, that that person will be disappointed in you. And so it causes us to live our lives in a smaller way than what God has designed because we're not walking in truth. We're believing the lies. We're letting the negative expectation influence us. Now, here's another one that just came up for me. I'm always looking for opportunities to speak life into our son. We were doing homeschool and I told my son, I said, I believe you can do this algebra lesson without me today. And he said, I'm not sure. He said, I'm really nervous. And he kind of, was like taking this posture. And I said, well, tell me about what this nervous feeling is. He was just like, I don't think I can do it. And I said, oh, so you have an expectation of a negative outcome. And since I've trained him, I've taught him what the definition of fear is, he kind of looked at me. He was like, oh. I said, oh, so you're not nervous. You're actually afraid. And it just kind of, that light bulb went on for him. He was like, no, I'm not going to be afraid. And I said, so what are you going to do instead? And he put his shoulders back and you could tell his posture changed. And I said, how about we believe that you're going to do good at it? And so it's just those little moments. You have to train yourself to recognize when there's other things that are really fear masquerading as something else. So I want you to look through your emotions and your personality and see if you can identify things that you think is just normal for you, but really it's that sneaky fear creeping in. I want you to start recognizing those fear-based patterns that are keeping you from moving forward and stepping into everything that God has for you. Now, let me be clear. There is a biological purpose to some of our fears, right? I guess science would call them functional fears. There are fears that help you to know when you're not physically safe. There is fear that you have that lets you know you are not emotionally safe, right? So fear does have a purpose in keeping us safe. It helps us not to run into a street. It makes us look both ways. It helps us to be cautious when we're, walking up a hill or climbing or hiking, right? So there is a purpose for functional fear, but that's not what I'm talking about. So I hope you guys are really clear on the fact that I'm talking about the limiting fears that we have in our life. Isaiah 41:10 says, "Do not be afraid, for I am with you. Don't be discouraged, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and I will help you. I will hold you up with my victorious right hand." So scripture is clear that God does not want us to fear. He wants us to lean on him and trust in him. Here's another way that fear sneakily creeps in. And this is a big one for a lot of us because it has to do with when we make decisions, or really our lack of making the decision, because a lot of times fear creeps in and it causes us to have indecision because we're stuck. Again, overthinking it, or running through all the scenarios, or just never being able to see a clear path forward. So we end up doing nothing. Fear tells a story of failure long before it even happened. And if you believe the lies that fear tell you long enough, it will begin to shape your decision making and your mindset and your patterns. Think about a decision that you've been avoiding. Maybe a chance to step out, maybe a new opportunity. Is it a real reason that's holding you back, or is it really fear? Now, because I've struggled with this for many years, I had to create some boundaries in my brain, in my thinking, to help me recognize when fear was motivating a decision. And so I would have to go through the process of saying, okay, I was going to do this and now I'm going to do that. Or this is what I really wanted, but I'm going to settle for this. And I started asking myself the question, are you making a real decision, the decision that you think you should make, or are you making a smaller decision? Are you making a fearful decision? And I have to weigh that when I'm having those conversations internally. I have to weigh that and say, am I doing this because this is what I really believe God has for me? Or am I taking the smaller option because I'm afraid that it might not go well? My husband is a dreamer. He has all of these visions of grandeur. And when he would be sharing things with me, I would be trying to help him by being reasonable or being cautious. And what I realized was that I was coming from a place of fear. See, he was dreaming big and he was having faith. Under the guise of giving him wisdom, I was projecting my fears onto him. So I would say things like, oh, well, maybe you don't want to go that big that fast, or maybe you should think about a smaller plan, or maybe you should have a plan B just in case. It sounds like wisdom. It sounds like being cautious. But again, I was projecting my fear on him. So what would you do if you could do it unafraid? What could you do if you knew you couldn't fail? What would you do if you didn't have all those yeah, buts and what ifs in the back of your mind? That's where I want you to get to. We want to get from not having the thoughts of a negative expectation, which is what fear is, and we want to have that anticipation that God has good for us. So what could you imagine? What could you achieve? What could you create if you weren't limiting in your thinking by fear? Wisdom can help you prepare for challenges, but fear keeps you stagnant. Wisdom can help you learn lessons, but fear has you in regret. I've even seen people miss out on good relationships because they are so they have such an anticipation that this one is going to turn out like the last one, or that all men are bad, or there aren't any good women out there, right? And we miss out on things that God has for us because we think it's just a way of thinking, but really it's fear operating in our thinking and in our decision making. So then how do we overcome these fear-based patterns? It starts with a shift. We are going to anticipate good happening for us. Remember, fear is a negative expectation. You are expecting the worst. You're expecting bad to happen. And we combat that with faith, which is an aggressive belief that God has good for us. Just like fear is learned, it can be unlearned. We've got to shift our speaking. We've got to believe that God has good for us, that God is already working things out on our behalf. We can face challenges and come out stronger. We can have trials and come out wiser. Fear will always whisper, always, but you don't have to give it authority in your life. It will always knock, but you don't have to let it in. Fear thrives in worst case scenario, but faith thrives in expectation. And that is where I live now. I was thinking about this the other day, like everything in my life is not perfect, but I am in such anticipation of what God is about to do. I don't even know what it is, but I'm so excited of whatever he's about to do in my life. I live with this aggressive belief that God has good for me. And it doesn't matter if I don't see it yet. I live in a state of expectation. And you know what that has done? That has vanquished fear in my life because I'm not sitting around like, what's going to happen? How do I know if it works out? I wonder if they're going to like me. I wonder if that plan is going to come through. I literally am sitting here imagining. I sit and I use my imagination to believe and to expect whatever God is going to do next in my life. And I'm expecting it with anticipation because I believe it's going to be good. I don't know what it is, but I believe it's going to be good. And that is where I want you to get to. You have to have an aggressive belief that God has good for you. You have to know that God's plans for you are good. And when you do, you will be able to overcome fear because you won't be anticipating that bad result. You will be giddy for what God is going to do next in your life. That's been it. I hope this one blessed you. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. And remember, if you change your mind, you'll change your life.